where best friends and next-door neighbors, Willow and Lillian, spill the tea on murder, mysteries, and other things that go bump in the night. So get your favorite teacup ready, and let's get into it. Welcome to Cruelty Podcast. This is Lillian, and with me is Willow.
Hello.
Hello. And true story, a slice of American cheese nearly killed me. Better now. Now, as a Native American person, occasionally I am bothered by lactose. Mm-hmm. But as I have gotten older, my body has decided that that's now poison and I will die. So I have to remove all dairy from my diet. And I'm salty about it.
Condolences.
For I love cheese.
I know,
and
it's sad.
Yeah, it is sad. And it was the American cheese that nearly killed me. And I learned that's because of all the cheeses. American cheese, which isn't entirely real cheese, has the most lactose in it. Huh. I thought because it was faker, it'd be safer. Wrong. I was wrong and nearly paid the ultimate price. So how are y'all doing?
Such a strange way to start an episode.
Sure. Well, this is my warning. I've been told this episode's disgusting.
Yes.
And my tummy is already very upset, so I've got queued up puppies and kittens.
If you guys are planning on eating,
don't. Man, that reminds me of something. When I was a kid, I was like 19. I ordered some Chinese takeout, and I had just gotten the internet at my apartment. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm going to look at weird stuff on the internet now. And I went to rotten.com. That Chinese did not get eaten that day. Shit was gross. Do you not remember that website? Was it like a little before your time? Well, rotten.com was just a collection of all the most horrible images on the internet that exist, like dead people, exploded people. It was just really fucked up. And I should not have been looking. It was bad for my mental health and certainly bad for my appetite. And to this day, I struggle eating fried rice.
Oh, I love fried rice.
Well, it looks like maggots sometimes, especially when you're looking at something covered in that. So I was like, uh-oh.
That's disgusting.
So if you're like me and yucky images or, imagery, in this case, freak you out, please don't eat stuff while listening to this episode. I'm going to look at pictures of Pomeranian puppies.
Yes.
I suggest you do the same unless you're driving.
I suggest this.
Then don't do that. Look at the road. Mm-hmm. That's right.
Mm-hmm. Both
Safety
hands,
first.
10 and 2.
That's 10 and 2 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like a lame old square. That's how we drive and stay alive.
That's exactly how I drive, yes. Mm-hmm.
It is exactly how I drive.
Yep.
All right, so give us them warnings, girl.
Well, the warnings for this are descriptions of wounds and mutilation, especially boobs, sexual assault, necrophilia, and cannibalism. And basically, if you can't stomach the phrase severed breast, this is not your episode.
Well, what if that's me and I need to go?
Guess I'm doing this one alone.
No, I'll just I'll disassociate far away.
I will pre-warn this is one of the harder episodes I've ever had to research. I definitely cried during the research. I will try not to on this episode, but I can't promise you anything. And I definitely almost threw up while researching this. And I cut out a lot of details because I couldn't stomach saying it with my mouth. Not that what I'm about to say is any easier, but just know that if I've said what I say, and there was more.
Is it worse than the narco Satanists?
Yes.
Ah, fuck, that one was
much
bad.
Worse.
Much?
I would think so, yes.
Ah, Christ on a cracker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so it's Satan month, and today we're talking about a satanic cult from Chicago in the 1980s. The cult had never actually had an actual name, but the media dubbed this group of serial killers the Chicago Ripper Crew for their gruesome mutilations, their demonic killings that riddled the community and kept them in constant fear. With no clear victim profile other than women in the wrong place at the wrong time, literally just picked up off the streets, no one in Chicago and the surrounding areas felt safe day or night. Think Manson mixed with Jack the Ripper. This case is more than just rough. It's graphic and it's horrific and gut-turning. So again, do not eat during this episode. The Chicago Ripper crew begins with its ringleader, Robin Gecht, who was later said to make Charles Manson, quote, look like a Boy Scout. Born on November 30th, 1953 in Chicago, a writer from the Chicago Tribune, Bonita Brandt, wrote in an article that begins with this quote. It says, quote, Robin Gecht was a middle child wedged between 6 brothers and sisters, a problem child, a high school dropout, a street kid. Was he the mastermind in this bizarre string of Jack the Ripper mutilation murders? To his neighbors in the working class neighborhood around him, in the 2100 block of North McVicker Avenue on the city's near northwest side, Robin was friendly enough. He would wave hello whenever he would walk by. He was Mr. Fix-It. A skilled contractor, electrician, and an all-around handyman, he would routinely volunteer to do repairs on houses on his block. He did a good job. In the year and a half that he lived there, the neighbors remember lazy afternoons with his wife, Rosemary. She would sit in the front yard playing with their 3 young children. Robin would be puttering around, always busy with something, cutting grass, raking leaves, or helping out their landlord with their household repairs. The tiny house now sits boarded up and empty. The locks have been changed. On Halloween, Gecht and his family quickly moved out, leaving behind a trail of broken windows, trash, and a mysterious little anteroom in the attic where a series of red and black upside-down crosses had been painted on the walls. That was just the beginning. Gecht is now under suspicion as a modern-day Jack the Ripper, charged with non-fatal slashing attacks on 2 Chicago women, but implicated in a string of gruesome mutilation murders in which 3 of his close friends are charged. Investigators are exploring the information that Gecht acted as a, quote, Manson-like leader of this crew, with the ability to manipulate his friends, similar to Charles Manson, whose followers committed ritualistic murders in California several years ago. And I think that quote really helps kind of paint the picture of what it was like for the community around this time. Manson was obviously fairly recent and still a huge topic of discussion and fascination.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It was the beginning of the Satanic Panic.
Yes, it was.
And John Wayne Gacy was just arrested in Chicago a few years prior in late 1978. And you know how horrifically terrified this community was during that time.
Oh, yes.
They thought it was a safe place once he was behind bars, but then in 1981, bodies were being discovered again, and it was terror all over again. When women were being picked up just at random off of the streets, and we're talking a potential over 20 victims in just little over a year.
That's a lot.
It's
and
a
that's
lot.
Really intense.
It's very intense. It's literally one after the other. And with John Wayne Gacy's body count at approximately 33, this community saw well over 50 deaths in less than a decade with just these 2 cases. So if you lived in Chicago during this time, I commend you. It must have been just absolutely terrifying. And once again, just like John Wayne Gacy, it was someone they would least expect. Speaking of that killer clown, do you remember what line of work he did besides being a clown?
I know he did some like contract work, like he was a contractor.
He owned his own construction business,
yes,
called PDM Contractors. You want to take a wild guess at who one of his employees was?
Was it this guy?
Robin motherfucking Gecht.
Jesus Christ.
And
Saints
remember,
preserve us.
I'm telling you, this is a fucked up case. So remember, Gacy would usually hire people within his victim profile.
Yes.
So usually young men and boys. Robin was in his early 20s when he was hired. He was petite and outwardly very charming. Robin worked on John Wayne Gacy's house. He was the one who either unknowingly or knowingly dug the grave in the crawl
Oh my God,
space.
it's this guy. Okay,
it's this
so
guy.
I have extensively researched John Wayne Gacy.
I know it, yes.
Because I I was going to do an episode on him.
Yes.
I have episode notes for his case. Ready to go anytime.
I know you do.
And boy, I really don't want to do it. I will eventually. But that guy, 100% believe he knew
I totally
exactly
do.
what was going on.
I think he did too.
I think he helped.
I think he did too. And that's what everybody else thinks, but this is all allegedly.
Sue me. I don't fucking care.
Everything is allegedly right now.
Allegedly fine. There you go.
Right?
Can't sue me. I don't know anything.
Because I'm about to talk about what he was doing at home while he was working.
I see.
For John Wayne Gacy. So you'll kind of understand that through his actions that we know of, it is likely that there was more known between the two of them.
Yeah.
So whether or not Robin knew at the time that Gacy was a serial killer, once he found out that what he had done and how long he had gotten away with it, like once he was captured, he was fixated on it. He idolized this man. He wanted to do what Gacy had done, but also learn from all of his mistakes and be better than him. He kind of thought, if this guy could do it and he could get away with this much, I'm so intelligent. Of course I could get away with anything. And just like Gacy, no one knew who he really was deep down inside. As he was working for John Wayne Gacy early in the marriage, his wife started to realize he was more and more not just kind of weird, but actually really fucked up. He later stated in an interview, quote, "It is a thing with my entire family going back, as I'm told, to my great-grandfather. Each of us men have married large-breasted women. My ex-wife is a 39D, and yes, she was very satisfying to me." I kind of threw up a little bit in my mouth when I had to read that out loud. Now, she knew that he especially was attracted to her breasts, but it didn't take long for Robin's fascinations with breasts to become more and more sadistic. Lots of trigger warnings ahead. He'd ask her to stick pins in her nipples during sex.
Oh, hell no.
And that satisfied him for a little bit, but not long.
She did it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, damn.
I mean, this woman is severely brainwashed, manipulated, and gaslit.
I'm just surprised.
I know. I couldn't. So once that didn't satisfy him, he then started asking her to stick pins all the way into her breasts and leave them in all day long. And this turned him on. Leaving the pins in her breast all day would lead to infections, which Robin would go get her medicine so it didn't turn septic.
I don't have words.
Nope. But when this wasn't enough for Robin, he turned his attention to other girls. Young girls. It's not stated who they are or what their ages were, but it's reported kind of all around that they were young. So I'm assuming teenage years. And he'd take them back to his house and sexually assault them, assaulting one girl in his daughter's bed. He made all of them also stick needles into their breasts, attempting to cut one of their nipples off. And apparently, Rosemary knew about this. It's claimed she even talked to one of the girls or some of the girls. But she was so manipulated at this point, she couldn't do anything about it. And she actually felt relieved that she wasn't the one being tortured anymore.
It's really hard for me to find sympathy for people allow children to come to harm.
1,000%.
No matter how manipulated. I don't, I've been manipulated.
Same.
It's not like I don't think I'm better than that or anything. But that's where it ends with me. Like, it would snap me out of it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to be judgy. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Can't.
Well, she tried getting a divorce from him numerous times, and he would not allow it. And remember the times.
Oh, I know.
It's not easy for a woman to leave a man and get a divorce right now.
It's not
but it
easy.
Definitely wasn't then.
Yeah, it's not easy to leave an abuser, period. They make it very difficult.
Financially, especially.
That too.
So it's not very clear where he gets his obsession with breasts, actually, like where it actually originated. Several women would later come forward and say that Robin had asked them to cut their nipples off so he could, quote, see how they work. But of course, he denies ever saying this. Details about his childhood are rarely discussed, but it is mentioned that he didn't get along well with his mother, like at all. So maybe it stems from mommy issues. It's really hard to say, but that would honestly be my guess. He was kicked out of his house by his parents and sent to a school for troubled children because he allegedly assaulted his sister, sexually assaulted his younger sister. And I say allegedly because there was never a court case about it or anything like that, but it's spoken about quite a bit. He dropped out of that school at 16 and then allegedly became friends with a suspected pedophile in his late teens. They even went on vacation together. So not much is actually known about the relationship. This man's name isn't even mentioned, but if it is true that this even happened and that they actually had a relationship, it would, I don't know, make sense because of the person that he was and the person that he would become, especially after becoming friends with John Wayne Gacy. It's just, yeah, it's just, it kind of leads to his sexual depravity. But he ended up keeping all of this to himself. And, once he left that friendship or relationship or whatever it was, he went on to, try to work on his appearance and try to make himself out to be this upstanding citizen. He became an electrical engineer and was married pretty quickly and then very quickly after they were married, they had 3 children until he formed the Ripper Crew. He hadn't actually committed any crimes up until then that we know of, and the only person who really knew that he had any issues was his wife, and she'd been gaslit and abused so much she couldn't really fully grasp what was going on, and she never spoke up about what was happening to her behind the scenes. Robin was a master manipulator. He controlled his entire world around him, what people saw, what people thought about him, what his wife and children did. No one knew that who he was and what he was doing. And no one knew about the darkness that lurked inside of him, the darkness that he worshiped. He kept his devotion to Satan to himself. He kept his wife and his children away from the attic, where he'd go up and convert the entire attic into a full-blown satanic chapel, complete with altars and shrines and upside-down crosses and eventually bloodshed. And that poor woman and those poor children were sleeping feet away from satanic cannibalistic rituals that were taking place, and they had no idea. He would stow away in the attic for long periods of time, blaring Black Sabbath and poring over satanic texts and books on mutilation, sacrificial rituals, and torture practices. It's believed that his fixation on breast could have derived from a satanic ritual that he had read about involving abducting and torturing a woman, removing her breast, and how to take that severed breast and make it into a tobacco pouch for ritual use.
Jesus.
This case is really hard for me to stomach speaking about. So when John Wayne Gacy's case hit the media, it gave Robin Geck the realization that he didn't have to take his fantasies out on his wife slowly and carefully, a little bit at a time, so she didn't go to the police. But now he believed he could do whatever he wanted to whoever he wanted. And being the master manipulator that he was, Robin ended up, just like his idol, starting his own construction business, and ended up convincing his employees to join him in these ritualistic killings. 2 of them were brothers who were actually living next door, Andrew Kokorelles and Thomas Kokorelles, Andy and Tommy. They grew up in a Greek Orthodox household with lots of siblings and a very angry father who was extremely abusive and would give his children's quote-unquote lashings for just about any small infraction. It was actually stated in one of the sources that that one of the brothers was smoking weed and ended up getting strapped to a table and given 15 lashes for it.
Jesus.
Robin also recruited Andy and Tommy's sister's boyfriend at the time, Eddie Spreitzer. Now, the two of them ended up breaking up shortly after he joined the Ripper crew, and she ended up moving away, so she had no idea what her brothers or her ex were actually up to. But Robin is now in his 30s. Eddie is 21. Tommy and Andy are in their late teens. All three of them have been described as mentally slow, with learning disabilities and low IQs. They were young and they were easily manipulated. They see him as their boss, their friend, their confidant. He had given them a job and an income, and, when they needed it the most. They had all come from abuse and poverty, and he gave them shelter and opportunity. He'd let them stay at his house for as long as they needed to. They looked up to him, and he's clearly the guy in charge. They were eventually also pretty scared of him and would ultimately do anything that he said, especially once he showed them his true colors and his satanic chapel. Eddie later said, quote, "If someone had asked me at the time to be in a porno movie or rob a bank or anything, I sure would have done it." And it's here that I see all the major ties back to Manson. He formed a crew or a cult and essentially trained them to be the most depraved, sadistic killers so he could watch, so he could get off, so he could keep his hands clean. I mean, he definitely killed and took part in all of the tortures, but he didn't do any heavy lifting. And by having accomplices completely controlled, he could not only have other people helping him in these abductions, but also in court, he could forfeit all the blame to them. So you can see his strategy. By meeting all their needs and controlling them, and then introducing them to Satanism and ritual and magic to manipulate the crew into becoming more of a cult-like devotion to him as a leader, brainwashing them to do his bidding. He's just like Spicy Daddy himself, like to them especially. And they really did believe that he had supernatural powers, that he could summon demons and that he could, have, Satan inside of him, that they were terrified of him completely. So he ended up getting a work van for this new construction company. This old, rusty, orangish red van that he modified to transport victims. He used plywood to wall off the section between the driver and the back of the van, and then broke off the handles inside so people could enter, but they couldn't get out. And then they'd go on patrol, weaving through the streets, looking for any potential victim, picking up literally anyone they could at any time, day or night, whenever they wanted. They'd abduct a woman and either take her to a secondary location, like a motel or a wooded area, or even Robin's attic, or they would just abuse her there in the van and kill her and then discard her somewhere else. They basically built essentially a mobile torture chamber. They would torture their victims with all kinds of things, from needles and ice picks to various types of knives, cutting and stabbing all over them, keeping them alive for as long as they possibly could so that they felt every little thing. All at the command and ultimate pleasure of Robin Gecht. His favorite part of the torture was when he would take a piano wire, trigger warning, and amputate one or both of the victim's breasts, which he would take back to the attic for rituals and offerings, and he would keep remnants of their breasts in a box on his altar for Satan. And it didn't matter what these women looked like or how old they were, no particular racial profile or age preference. They picked up women anywhere from ages of their late teens, well into their 40s, from all walks of life. The only thing Robin was specific about was their breasts. And apparently, if you can imagine, he never stopped talking about boobs. He was literally obsessed with them. He just would not shut up about them. And it only gets super fucked up from here. So Buckle up. Now, this case is particularly rough for me. This is their first victim, a woman named Linda Sutton, on May 23rd, 1981. Not much is known about her other than she was a 26-year-old mother of 2. Her children were 9 and 1. She just happened to be walking down the street. They saw her near the Brer Rabbit Motel in Chicago, which is known to be a hangout for sex workers. It's likely that's who they were targeting. It's not known if she was one, but it doesn't fucking matter. They quickly jumped out, grabbed her, and threw her into the van and sped off. Eddie would later confess that Robin would essentially orchestrate all the things done to her and all the other victims. They all violently and physically and sexually assaulted and tortured her for hours. They stabbed her numerous times. They cut off her left breast while she was still alive, and then they dumped her body behind a seedy motel down the street. Another big trigger warning. After they dumped her body, they then went back to Robin's attic with the severed breast. They all took turns masturbating onto it, and then they all took turns eating it. This would be every single severed breast in this case. This is what they would do every single time. And if there was anything left after they were done eating it, they would put the remnants as an offering to Satan. Now, 10 days later, police received a call about a foul smell behind the Rip Van Winkle Motel, where they found her mangled, decomposing body still handcuffed, a gag in her mouth. She had a sweater on, but no underwear, and in her socks was a few dollars rolled up. Even though the severed breast had allowed for insects to speed up decomposition, the coroner was able to determine, she had only been dead for 3 days. So she was alive for a week.
Oh my God.
Behind that dumpster. Unable to move.
Oh my God.
Handcuffed while her babies are at home.
I can't imagine.
Linda's body had decomposed to the point that she was so unrecognizable it would take weeks for them to identify her. They ended up bringing her earrings back to her son.
Jesus.
By then, the case had kind of fizzled out. This was the early 80s, so forensics is at a minimum. And it was so random that they had nothing to connect the crime to, but not for long. This gave the cult the confidence, and soon police were finding women's mutilated bodies, all with their left breast amputated, scattered and dumped all over the Chicago area.
My God.
There was an unknown victim who was found to be approximately 35, a woman who had been sexually assaulted, tortured, and her left breast removed. Another unidentified 19-year-old woman, also sexually assaulted, tortured, and her left breast removed. There was another unidentified woman who had all the same MO, except her breast hadn't been removed, but it had been bitten, stabbed, and masturbated on. Due to the rapid decomp, none of these victims and many others have been identified still.
Doesn't surprise me given that 70% of rape kits haven't even been tested.
Exactly.
So sad.
And because of this, the Ripper crew continued. We honestly have no idea how many people they killed because still to this day, many remain both unidentified and still missing. A lot of their bodies have not been found. On May 15th, 1982, a real estate agent named Lorraine Borowski was attempting to unlock the door to her office at Remax when she was abducted.
And I have heard of this case in particular.
Yeah, I know. I can't, like, the crimes, the photos of her stuff that she leaves on that she dropped.
Yeah.
It's etched in my mind because you know that was an image that was etched in her mind as well.
Yeah.
Her makeup items and her keys were found near the door later that morning when her coworkers arrived and found the door locked. Just like the others, she was sexually and physically tortured. Her breast was removed, and her body was dumped in a nearby cemetery. It took 5 months for her body to be discovered. Her mother said that she searched and searched and searched for her daughter, always carrying a sheet, just in case she found her body, and wanted to preserve her dignity until the police showed up.
Oh my God.
Luckily, her mother never found her body, but someone else did. And when she found out where Lorraine was found, she realized that during her search, she had been within several feet of her daughter's body and just hadn't seen her. 2 weeks after Lorraine went missing, on May 29th, a woman named Shui Mack disappeared from the street. She had been working with her family at her family restaurant that night. They closed up, and she left with her brother. Her mother and her father were following close behind them, all heading home. It was late, around 1:30 in the morning, and her brother and her started arguing about something pertaining to the shift that they had had that night. He got mad. He pulled over and told her to get out of the car and that she could hitch a ride with their parents, who were not far behind them. When he arrived home and then his parents pulled in behind him, he was so confused to not see his sister get out of their car with them. He explained to them that she was still out there, and they immediately spent the rest of the night searching for her, eventually calling the police and reporting her missing. The Ripper crew had taken her. They had taken her out into the woods and tortured her, sliced her whole body up, stabbing her chest viciously because Robin was mad that her breasts weren't as big as he anticipated. Before he ended up cutting both of them off and burying her in a nearby construction zone, her body was discovered months later. 2 weeks after Shui Mack disappeared, on June 13th, a woman named Angel York was abducted off the street. She was handcuffed in the van and tortured just like the others, only this time, Robin wanted her to cut off her own breast. He told her that if she wanted to survive, she'd have to cut off her own breast. And she knew just from the torture alone that they were going to kill her if she didn't. So she did. Well, she started to. But when Robin saw her cutting into her own skin, he went into a frenzy. He went wild. He grabbed the knife from her and he cut it off himself. And then he had sex with the open wound.
Oh my God.
After he came inside of it, he took duct tape and taped the wound shut. And then they dumped her body in an alley. And she survived.
My good God.
I know. Thankfully, someone found her and took her to a hospital where she was able to communicate with officers about what had happened to her. Police were finally able to determine that they weren't looking for a serial killer. They were looking for 4 serial killers. And she was able to tell them about the van and that it was red. But other than that, she couldn't recall any details. Up until this time, police had been very hush-hush about the whole string of murders, especially the gruesome details, both for obvious reasons of it being case-related, but they also didn't want to stir up another panic amongst the community all over again, which I think is wrong. I think they should have told the community.
So they could protect themselves.
So those women wouldn't be just walking around thinking they're safe.
Goddamn.
But with this survivor came her story, and the media took this by storm.
Good.
And this is when they dubbed them the Chicago Ripper Crew. In August, 18-year-old Sandra Delaware was abducted. Her hands were bound. She was sexually assaulted in the van. Her breast was removed. This time, Robin shoved a rock inside of her mouth to use as a gag. Trigger warning.
Teeth stuff?
No.
Okay, thank God. I can't.
No, something worse. He gagged her with a rock, and then he shoved a broken wine bottle inside of her.
My God.
And shredded her while she's still alive. He then strangled her with her own bra strap. Her body was found a month later. Once again, 2 weeks later, they abducted their next victim. 30-year-old marketing executive Rose Beck Davis. Apparently, Rose was a very intelligent and outspoken woman who would not have gone down without a fight. She endured the same torture as the rest, only this time her face was completely bashed in, as if they were in a fit of rage. Her body was found a few weeks later. Like most serial killers, Robin is escalating at this point at a very rapid rate. He's becoming more and more frenzied and bloodthirsty and sadistic. He starts losing control, and his crew is getting more and more apprehensive and scared of getting caught. But Robin doesn't give a flying fuck, and he thinks he's absolutely invincible. On October 6th, the group was driving around Chicago, unable to find their next victim, which made Robin very angry and very impatient. He spotted some people on the street, pulled out a gun, and opened fire. He just wanted to kill for the sake of killing. Many people were injured in the shooting. One person was murdered. A man named Rafael Torrado happened to be in a phone booth on the phone when he was randomly shot and killed. He died immediately, and then Robin drove off. This clearly shows that Robin has completely lost control at this point. It's completely out of his MO. It's random. It's with a gun. There's no sexual gratification for him. And it seems like he just did it just because he was mad.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Mm-hmm. And of course, because there was no sexual gratification, he kept looking for victims after this. Later that night, while they're patrolling the streets, they came across 20-year-old Beverly Washington. She was a sex worker, and Robin actually got out of the van and approached her on foot, offering her more money than she had proposed, and this ended up getting her to comply and get in the van. They handcuffed her and assaulted her, just like the rest. Only this time, before amputating, Robin forced her to swallow a fistful of pills. And this is not like Robin. He wants his victims wide awake so he can see the torture and see the pain. That's usually what he gets off on. For some reason, he drugged her this time. She passed out just as Robin was standing over her with a piano wire. But luckily, she has no recollection of what happened after that. She was found that next morning beside a railroad track, alive.
My God.
Her left breast had been amputated. Her right breast was deeply slashed. She had been sexually assaulted and beaten, but she was breathing. She was rushed to the hospital where they were able to save her and eventually hear her story. She was in complete shock and she wasn't really able to speak, but through questions and gestures and notes on a notepad, she was able to go into detail about what the van looked like and the people who abducted her. She mentioned the plywood divider, the doors that wouldn't open from the inside, and a car decoration that proved to be very significant. They had a string of feathers that was hanging from where the review mirror would have been if there was a review mirror, but there wasn't one because of the plywood.
A rear view mirror?
Yeah, the rear view mirror.
Okay.
There was a string of feathers. There was one blue feather and one white feather. Now, this would be like the main significant
What caught him?
piece
Yeah.
to this all. And this also aligned with a report that was made by a sex worker named Cynthia Smith, who had also reported earlier that year about an attack where she had been slashed with a knife before escaping. It was the exact same van, and it had to be the exact same people. This was the final clue that police needed. And then 2 weeks later, notice everything is 2 weeks apart in this case.
Yes, it's weird.
It's very strange. Now, 2 weeks after they found out about this, on October 20th, they spotted that van with that description. They pulled it over and they found the driver to be Eddie Spreitzer, who didn't look like the person they were looking for, the ringleader, Robin, but they knew that this was the van that they were looking for, and they knew that there were 4 people, so they brought him into questioning, and he cracked. He told them who his boss was, and Robin was arrested. But the infuriating thing about this case is that because of the time period and the lack of physical evidence, aside from survivors identifying their perpetrators, they had nothing physically linking all these murders to these 4 people. So the charges in this case are a huge letdown, to say the least. This isn't a case where the victims find justice. It's just devastating. Robin was arrested and charged with the attack on Beverly, Washington, but he was released on bail.
Are you shitting me?
And of course, as soon as he was released on bail, he tried attacking another woman. Thankfully, this woman escaped, but still, the police continued to interrogate Eddie, and he ended up giving a 73-page confession detailing every little thing they ever did together, implicating the Cocorales brothers and describing how Robin orchestrated the entire thing. So Robin was rearrested, and then the brothers were also arrested, and finally the police were able to get a search warrant to search his home. But at this point, they had already left, and he had gotten most of it out. But they did find the Satanic Chapel and all of the satanic texts, and the whole case kind of seemed to make sense now.
Yep.
But as soon as they brought Robin in, they didn't even keep them apart. I'm so angry.
Stop fucking it up.
They brought Robin in, and Eddie and Robin passed by each other. And as soon as Eddie saw Robin, immediately on sight, he recanted his entire confession, and just like that, Robin turned to the police and said, "There you go, see? I'm innocent." The Cocorales brothers both confessed to the killings and implicated Robin as their ringleader, but with all the conflicting accounts and the lack of evidence, they were unable to convict Robin for any of the murders. None of them. Thomas Cocorales was convicted of murder and rape in the death of Lorraine Borowski and sentenced to life in prison. His rape conviction was later reversed, and his murder conviction was retried, and he was released from prison in 2019 after serving 37 years. He is now out.
It's terrifying.
He is now a civilian.
It's terrifying.
His brother Andrew Cocorales and Edward Spreitzer were convicted of several murders and sentenced to death. Andy was executed in prison in 1999. He was the last person to be executed in the state of Illinois. Why all of these people did all of the same crimes and got convicted of different charges just baffles me. I'm assuming it's because
Various deals, I would guess.
Well, because they pled guilty.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just frustrating.
It is frustrating.
Robert Gecht was charged with kidnapping, rape, and attempted murder on Beverly, Washington, and sentenced to 120 years in prison. Though the kidnapping and rape charges were dropped, I don't know why. His projected parole date is now October 10th, 2042, when he will be 88 years old.
Let him rot.
He still to this day says that he's innocent. He's quoted as saying, quote, "First mistake is considering me a serial killer. Am not considered one. I have never killed or took part in any such acts, nor ever charged in any murders of anyone." He's been trying to get DNA testing to clear him on his remaining charges, but he's continuously denied. For some reason, they just won't run his DNA. I don't know why. They have so much evidence.
Fucking run it.
They could have gotten all of them with DNA.
Run it.
What are you waiting on?
Unless this is fucky somehow.
unless they don't have the evidence because they didn't keep it.
They lost it. Yeah, it's something like that. It's some corruption somewhere.
In so many of the articles that I read, a lot of the victims are described as sex workers. And I think a lot of the time, some of them I don't even think really were sex workers. I think that, and if they were, who fucking cares? But I think that might have something to do with it. They
Definitely
just kind of
does. They don't fucking
write
care.
off women as trash.
Unless you're the
dispensable.
perfect victim, unless you're like white and blonde haired and mom, and
Even then, sometimes.
yeah, even then,
You
just
know?
don't give a shit.
It's just sad.
Makes
It's
me
tragic.
so angry.
Even with eyewitness statements and firsthand accounts, there has been no hard evidence submitted to the case that can prove Robin Gecht is guilty of anything but attempted murder of his last victim. Robin's family, including his wife, are completely behind him. They believe he's completely innocent. How? I get that he's a master manipulator, but how can you believe that if you've seen all the things that he's done? They've all seen horrendous acts made by this man, and they still believe that he's innocent. And it's just because he's a fucking good manipulator.
He convinced people that he had nothing to do with any of John Wayne Gacy's activities too.
Exactly.
And he was just an innocent victim himself.
Exactly.
He had, I believe, didn't he have at least some sort of a sexual relationship with Gacy?
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So he's quoted as saying this. I don't even want to say it, but it's just so stupid. So he says, I don't only face the injustices, but the nightmares that follow. You have no idea the pain and hurt I face and feel every single day I sit here and lose hope. I'm not an angel, but I never intentionally hurt anyone unless it was to protect myself or my family. I could never live with killing or knowing I was responsible for taking someone's life.
Bouquet.
What a waste of breath. I really hope that he doesn't make it to see the light of day, especially at 88 years old. My God. What a disgusting individual. What a fucking disgusting human being.
Shit's fucked.
The injustice of this case is so infuriating. It makes my blood boil.
Yeah, for real.
And, my God.
I don't have anything clever as a transition for business time.
You know what doesn't make my blood boil?
Business time.
Jesus. I'm so sorry, y'all. That case was so hard to research.
Rough.
It was so hard to talk about. I'm sure it was hard to hear.
Some parts were a bit rough, yeah.
But man, Satan month. He did it all for Satan.
My middle child works at a grocery store, and the bakery gives them all the cake ends they trim off and stuff.
Oh, nice.
So I always have a yummy little piece of cake.
Lucky you.
Yeah, but I was thinking, before this, I was I'm going to eat me a little
now
piece
you're
of
not.
cake. I'm not fucking eating shit. I'm going to brush my teeth and go the fuck to bed and have bad dreams. That's what I'm going to do. But hey, I am almost out of soap, but not quite. So let's get rid of that soap. 40% off coupon for you guys. It is soap. Just soap. All caps.
Soap. Oh,
that's the coupon code you're going to put in at checkout. And you'll get 40% off your order. And I don't care what it is. So get in there and buy up all my shit so it's gone. Mm-hmm. Because you girls got to prepare for Christmas time now.
That's right.
And so I'll have a bunch of yummy late Christmas themed soaps. But for right now, let's get the Halloween shit out of here. Let's get it out of here. And if you it won't come in time for Halloween if you order by the time you've listened to this, but it'll be close. And
Halloween season is year round.
It's year round. It's a part of who you are deep inside, and you know it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and hey, if you've got goth or witchy friends, they're gonna love it regardless of what time of year it is.
Exactly.
So yeah, get yourself hooked up. That's still doing tarot readings. Thank you for reaching out. Yes, indeed, some of my readings do go to spam because I do them through email. So if I owe you a reading, please reach out. I'm making sure everybody gets theirs. But if you want a reading, I'm still running my special until the end of this month, and then I will go back to regular prices. And all of the information for that is in the description. Also, do you have a small business? It's almost the holidays, y'all, and you need to make that bread. In order to make the bread, you got to spread the word. So if you're a small business, please get in touch. Let me help you out.
Yeah, let's get new sponsors.
Let's sponsor. And it's very cool. So we'll work together. And, because us small businesses got to stick together.
That's right.
And we got merch, and it's pretty rad. You should go look at it. It's hoodie season. Get you one. They're very soft and very good quality. Also, we have a Patreon. And that's where a lot of our focus is going to be now that we've gone down one episode per week. For our sanity and mental health. So please head on over to Patreon and check out what we all have to offer. Additional episode every week and all kinds of stuff, fun stuff. So go over there and give it a look-see.
And if you're listening to this episode on the day that it aired, it's my birthday.
Happy birthday, Willow. All of her
33.
payment information is in the bottom. If you want to send her some birthday love, she could use it. It's been rough. But if all you can do to support this podcast is listen, please know we greatly appreciate it. Don't ever feel bad, and don't ever send or buy soap or give a little birthday treat if it would put you and yours out. This is not what we're about. Don't feel no pressure. We love you guys, and thank you for your continued support. It means the world.
It really does. I couldn't make it through this without y'all.
That's for real. That's for real. Yes, and now I'm going to awkwardly say good night.
Good night.
Us on your social media platform of choice. Linktree/cruelty has all of the links. Check out our Patreon for exclusive episodes, merch, ad-free episodes, live ghost hunts, and much more. Please be sure to subscribe. New episodes are uploaded weekly. Thank you so much. See you next time. Music and production by Libby.